Now we want to give it a good whack with the data vac. Make sure that we get all the dust particles out of there and clean it out as best we can before we move to the chemical cleaning stage. For this phase of the work, you definitely want to be outside, or at least in some place that is well ventilated, because we're going to be using chemicals to clean the inside of the typewriter. Specifically, what we're going to be using is denatured alcohol, also called mentholated spirits, and a whole bunch of Q-tips. Here you can see that I have arranged the typewriter on a makeshift work table with a towel under it to collect any drippings. Also, I have used these two old table legs that were just lying out in the trash to elevate the typewriter, because remember, we took the feet off of it, and we don't want the typewriter to be lying on its works, like the bell or the spring or anything like that. Try and get it up off the ground if you can. You don't need much of the methylated spirits. A little goes a long way, as do your Q-tips. We're going to dip one end of the Q-tip in the alcohol and begin to brush it on to clear out all of that gunk. All of that is coming off the typewriter. I'm wearing a mask for two reasons. The first one being COVID-19, and I'm outdoors in New York City, and here we look out for each other. So we wear masks not just for our own safety, but so that we do not spread the virus to other people. Second reason, of course, is that you should not be breathing in denatured alcohol. Not good for you. It's basically a clean burning fuel. It's lighter fluid, essentially, and it's not a very good idea to be inhaling that over time. Make sure you have a plastic bag handy for disposables. And this phase is kind of pleasantly tedious. You just swab out every bit of the underside, every inch you can reach, every centimeter you can reach in the typewriter, you swab out with your Q-tips. A question people frequently ask is, well, how do you know that you're done? There's almost no way to do this wrong. Whatever you see, as long as it's a metal component, swap it out. If you come to a felt partition, like this little felt rester for the key heads, the hammer heads, the typefaces, yeah, you don't have to do that so much. But everything else, swap it out. In some cases, you want to be careful and do a sample of the paint job first to see how the alcohol will affect it. In most cases, it won't be a big deal, but better safe than sorry. Also, when you're dealing with keys, like I've already mentioned that these keys are kind of steel rimmed, but they seem to have like a celluloid character onto them. Everything else is fair game. Be sure to move your carriage and get down into the carriage rails. A lot of dust and gook typically gets trapped in the carriage rails. This part of the process is so important that typically I will do it in stages. It might take an hour or two or three, and then I will leave the machine to dry. The alcohol evaporates very quickly, after which I repeat the process all over again just to make sure that I got it right. Funneled through two main assemblies, and that is the main spring, which is right here, and your escapement, which is just like in watches and clocks, the mechanism that allows the carriage to proceed tick, 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 one space at a time, whenever a letter or character or the space bar is depressed. If your mainspring is shot on a vintage manual typewriter, that's not the end of the world. That can frequently be replaced. If your escapement is shot, probably not even worth getting into. The escapement is kind of like the heart of the entire machine. And if that thing goes, it's just usually not even worth pursuing. As a rule of thumb, the harder a crevice is to reach, the more dust and gook and gunk it has probably accumulated. Oh, I found pennies, cigarette butts, old cigarette butts, insects alive and dead. I've read about people who've found things like cigar clippers and you name it, it's in there. Case in point about getting to know your machine while you're cleaning it. While I was cleaning this typewriter, I discovered that the hammers come up, they depress the ring here, and that ring is universal, meaning that any hammer can trip it, and that tells the escapement to release the carriage one block, and it moves over in time.